Okay, so you want to buy a Starbucks. You have the money, you have the suit, you have the Yelp reviews memorized. There is just one problem. Starbucks won't sell you one. Not for any amount of money. Not in the United States, not in Canada, not anywhere in North America. Because unlike McDonald's or Subway, Starbucks isn't a franchise. It never has been. And the reason why says more about how this company actually makes money than any balance sheet could. By the end of this video, you will know exactly why Starbucks refuses to franchise while every other fast food giant on earth is begging you to buy in, how the company still manages to hand its brand to outside owners anyway, what happens when the person holding the license picks the wrong side of a war, and who Starbucks' actual most valuable customer is, and it is not who you would guess. Let's start with the one path that does exist. Starbucks calls it a licensed store, and the difference from a franchise sounds small until you look at the numbers. To license a Starbucks, you'll need somewhere between $315,000 and $2.9 million, depending on size and location, plus $700,000 sitting in liquid assets just to be considered. That range isn't padding. It breaks down into construction and build-out to Starbucks' exact specifications, the espresso machines and equipment, initial inventory of coffee and food, staff training, and only then the $35,000 licensing fee itself. On top of the fee, there's a 5.5% royalty on your weekly sales and another 5% marketing fee on top of that, both paid every single week, whether you had a good one or not. Here's the catch nobody mentions up front. You don't actually own the business the way a McDonald's franchisee does. Starbucks still sells you the coffee, the cups, the machines, at a markup, and books that as revenue on its own books. You're less an owner and more a very well-supervised operator wearing someone else's name tag. And even that path is closed if you live in the United States. Starbucks licenses stores almost exclusively inside airports, universities, hotels, and grocery chains, places where someone already owns the real estate and the foot traffic. If you are an individual with $2 million and a dream, there is, quite literally, no form to fill out. So why does a company worth over $100 billion refuse to take the easy, franchise-fueled growth every competitor takes? The official answer, going back to founder Howard Schultz, is control. Schultz has said for decades that letting outside owners run Starbucks stores would wreck the third-place experience the company sells, coffee shop as living room, not fast food counter. But there's a simpler, less romantic reason too. Licensed stores only bring in 12% of Starbucks' total revenue, even though they make up nearly half of all Starbucks locations worldwide. Company-owned stores keep the entire ticket. Licensing keeps the brand pristine. Franchising, the McDonald's way, would mean sharing the actual profit engine with thousands of outside owners. Starbucks would rather own almost half its stores directly and control every espresso shot than collect a smaller royalty check from all of them. Here's the part most people miss entirely. Starbucks does franchise, just never where you're looking. Outside North America, in a limited number of markets, it hands entire countries to a single company. Meet Al Shaya Group, a Kuwaiti retail family founded in 1890. Since 1999, Al Shaya has held the master license for Starbucks across the Middle East and North Africa. Today, it runs nearly 2,000 stores across 11 countries, from Saudi Arabia to Turkey to Kazakhstan, employing more than 19,000 baristas. You don't apply to open a Starbucks in Riyadh. Al Shaya does, and then hires you to run the register. India works the same way, just with a different structure. Every Starbucks there operates through Tata Starbucks, a 50-50 joint venture between Starbucks and the Indian conglomerate Tata, running hundreds of stores across the country. No individual investor gets a seat at that table either. If you want a Starbucks in a country outside the US, Canada, and Western Europe, the honest path isn't filling out an application. It's building a multi-billion-dollar retail conglomerate first, and hoping Starbucks calls you. But master franchising this way comes with a risk no US franchisee ever faces: geopolitics. In 2023, after the war in Gaza began, a boycott of Western brands swept the region, and Starbucks became one of its most visible targets. Al-Shaya confirmed it was cutting jobs across its Starbucks Middle East business, citing what it called challenging trading conditions. A company that had spent 25 years building nearly 2,000 stores watched customers stay away, not because of the coffee, but because of what the logo represented to people thousands of miles from Seattle. That's a stumble. Russia was a full collapse. In May 2022, Starbucks announced it was leaving Russia entirely after 15 years and 130 stores, in response to the invasion of Ukraine. Every location was licensed through Al-Shaya, which had run the market since 2007. Within months, a Russian rapper named Tomati and restaurateur Anton Pinsky bought the entire operation, all 130 stores, staff included, and reopened it 3 months later under a new name, Stars Coffee, logo, green color scheme and all, just with the mermaid swapped for a woman in a traditional Russian headdress. The price Pinsky told reporters he paid for what had taken Starbucks 15 years to build. Around $6 million. For comparison, Starbucks pulls in more than that from a single decent quarter in Seattle alone. Stars Coffee even kept the green color scheme and the circular logo, just with the mermaid's crown swapped out. Pinsky insisted the resemblance was a coincidence. 3 years later, reports surfaced that Starbucks itself was quietly exploring buying the business back, this time at a price closer to $270 million, 45 times what it sold for. Whether that deal ever happens or not, the math tells you everything about what exiting a market actually costs a global brand. Now, if you did somehow get your hands on a licensed Starbucks in the US, here's what you're actually working with. The average Starbucks location brings in roughly $1.2 million a year in revenue. Strip out the cost of goods, staff, rent, and the royalty and marketing fees flowing back to Seattle, and a licensed operator typically nets somewhere between $50,000 and $200,000 a year. On a $700,000 to $2 million investment, that's a payback period of anywhere from 4 years, if you're lucky and busy, to well over a decade, if you're not. Music plays. Compare that to Al-Shaya's scale in the Middle East, nearly 2,000 stores generating enough combined volume that the group is reportedly in talks to sell just 30% of that Starbucks business alone to private equity and sovereign wealth investors, a stake some reports have valued north of $250 million. Same brand, same royalty structure, wildly different outcome depending on whether you're running one counter or an entire region. Here's the beat that actually explains why Starbucks doesn't need franchisees the way McDonald's does. Its whale isn't a whale at all. It's the regular. In the US, Starbucks Rewards has around 34 million active members, and last year they drove nearly 59% of all US company-operated sales, more than $13 billion in spend from people who are, on average, 5.6 times more likely to walk in every single day than a non-member. Music. Starbucks doesn't need one customer spending a fortune once. It needs 34 million customers spending $8, 5 days a week, forever. That's a subscription business wearing a coffee cup as a disguise. And Starbucks knows this habit travels. In China, its second biggest market, the rewards program has tens of millions of members of its own, in a country with a population more than 4 times the size of the US and a middle class that's still growing. Starbucks isn't chasing one big spender the way a casino chases a whale. It's manufacturing millions of small, identical whales, one loyalty app download at a time, and that's exactly why Starbucks would rather own the store collecting that habit directly than split it with a franchisee. So here's the 2 ways this actually plays out. Scenario 1, you license a single US Starbucks. Investment around $1 million once real estate and build-out are included. Revenue around $1.2 million a year. Net profit, after Starbucks takes its cut, somewhere near $100,000. Payback, roughly 7 to 10 years, assuming nobody outbids you for the lease and nothing overseas ever touches your supply chain. Scenario 2, you're Al-Shaya, holding the master license for an entire region, Nearly 2,000 stores, tens of millions in daily foot traffic, and enough scale that outside investors will pay you hundreds of millions of dollars just for a minority slice of the business. Multiply that single store profit by 2,000 locations, and you start to see why a family retail business founded in 1890 was willing to spend 25 years building it. But the risk scales right along with the reward. One regional boycott, one geopolitical event nobody in the boardroom voted for, and the same scale that made you rich starts bleeding jobs and revenue across 11 countries at once, right up until a war half a continent away turns your logo into a protest target and wipes out a market you spent 15 years building. So if you still want to buy a Starbucks, remember the actual lesson here. McDonald's will sell anyone with $2 million and a spare year of toilet scrubbing a shot at ownership. Starbucks won't sell you anything at all. It'll let you rent the name at its price on its terms for as long as it decides you're useful, and not one day longer.